Hello and welcome to Cooking Your Way Through Life.
Today's episode is Cooking Your Way Through Setbacks. And today's culinary stance is bouncing back from setbacks in the kitchen.
Cooking Your Way Through Life is a podcast combining knowledge of the kitchen and applying it to real-life situations. This podcast is all about understanding techniques to make things you already know even better. Topics from traveling on a budget, setting and achieving short and long-term goals, and of course, cooking.
On today's episode, I want to talk about setbacks in every manner possible. I recently had a huge setback, and I'm going to talk about that on air, but then I'm also going to talk about financial setbacks and maybe some personal setbacks too. With the cooking side of setbacks, I'm going to go over some steps to make sure that you don't give up when cooking just because you have maybe failed at one thing.
Please welcome Chef Hollywood.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Cooking Your Way Through Life with me, Chef Hollywood. And today we're talking about setbacks. Setbacks in your life, setbacks in the kitchen, setbacks in general. And I just wanted to start the year off talking about this because I just recently had a setback. Surprise, surprise. But we all do, and I think it's one of those things where sometimes it's very frustrating. Of course, it's very frustrating. You also might feel defeated, but do you decide to give up or do you just push on through? And I think most of us push on through. So, just talking about a couple setbacks here. I also wanted to dive into some setbacks in the culinary world because there's certain times and places where setbacks will cause you to pivot or, fix a recipe. And I think it's very important to know when and why, because it's not just about, starting over. Sometimes it's about how much time and energy and effort goes into starting over versus fixing the situation. So that's why I want to talk about that on the culinary side today. And we're going to start off by talking about setbacks because I'm just going to let you know what my setback is. My setback that just happened is actually directly with the podcast because if you're listening to the podcast right now, that means that, first of all, thank you so much. But that means you're on YouTube, which is my new home for my YouTube channel. Also for part of my podcast, but my podcast has lived in all the podcast spaces since 2020. Unfortunately, more recently, the place that I send my podcast through, the hosting site and all that jazz, has decided that since I upload my podcast all around the world, that I might be doing fraudulent activity, and they're investigating my podcast at the moment. So they pulled it. So as of now, I only can put my podcast on YouTube until they figure out what they want to do. Because the other route is I will be back everywhere, but I would have to go to another podcasting host and then upload every single episode that I've had since 2020. That's seasons 1 through 5, plus the new episodes that just came out in 2025, and then go from there, which I am more than willing to do, but I want to wait and see what happens first because I would much rather not do that. But I say that to say, huge setback. I am very frustrated. I did feel defeated, but it's not going to let it define who I am. And I think that's a huge part about setbacks, right? Like, you can't control sometimes what happens and how things set you back, but you can control how you react and what you do next. And a part of me could just be like, you know what? Guess that means it's a sign that I need to get out of YouTube and not YouTube. Sorry, YouTube. No, stay YouTube. Get out of podcasting because my podcast just got taken down. But I just look at it as I was already planning to update my podcast in a major way, which is coming, you guys. But this is just putting a little battery pack in my back now. And it's just it's just going to make me work even harder and go even harder out there because I take it as, okay, a little setback, but a setback is just a setup for something even better. When one door closes, another door opens, as they say. And I'm definitely going to keep on pushing, but I know it's hard, man. I'm not going to even sugarcoat it. There was a whole, when this happened to me last week, because my first episode that did this was the episode with me and OG that just came out. Go check that out on YouTube if you have not. I was so frustrated because I was like, dang, I got this amazing episode out with my boy. Me and my bro always cut up, but it's always amazing. And I know that my YouTube is just now building. So my audience isn't there like it is on the streaming sites for my podcast. I was just frustrated. But enough about that because we're not going to dwell on it. And I think that's a huge part of it too. It's just like when you have a setback, the longer you sit in the setback, there's no way for you to go forward sometimes, you know? And a lot of times, I can say myself included, I live in the setback a little too long. You know, you let it linger. I think my grandma used to say, if you smell something bad or like you lay down with dogs, like eventually you stop smelling the dogs. Like you're in that moment so long that now it's not even like something that affects you and like a ooh, what happened? It's just like you get used to it because now you're in there, you're in the den. So don't let that happen, guys. Um, as far as setbacks in general, I think it's also really cool to talk about this right now because it is still January. It's a brand new year. And unfortunately, we as humans have setbacks all the time. And a lot of times we do give up. And one of the episodes that came out this year, if you heard it, it's still on YouTube. Everything's on YouTube, guys. Plus, hopefully, not even hopefully, we will be back. So you might be listening to this on a streaming site thinking, what is he talking about? If that's the case, doesn't even matter because that automatically tells you the setback was okay because we were back better than ever. But my New Year's episode that came out around New Year's this year, I talk about New Year's resolutions. And I touched on the point that there's a study that says most people quit their New Year's resolution around February, which is only like a month, right? And I think part of it is when you have a setback of any kind, it is very, very, very I don't want to say damaging, but it's kind of damaging to your ego. It kind of sets you back. It definitely frustrates you. It definitely knocks you off your game. It definitely raises your anxiety. And one of the biggest things is losing weight, right? Like losing weight for those people who want to lose weight, you want to see results. So when you have those weeks or like days where nothing's happening, then it's like already frustrating. But then let's say you start losing a little weight, you start seeing a little thing, but then you go off the rails and you have an off day that might turn into an off weekend because life happens. And then that's a setback. And I think sometimes people don't bounce back from that because it's too much and they get too frustrated. And instead of putting the battery pack in their back, they just get out. And I'm not attacking that approach. All I'm saying is sometimes I think you have to look at situations and say, is this a situation where I can start over? Because a lot of times we can start over and it's not the end of the world. You know, you already started once. And I think one of my friends actually just told me this. My boy Nick from Cali just told me that it's easier to quit than to start. So if you start something, don't quit because it took so much more courage and energy to start it than it does to quit it. And I think I think sometimes those setbacks get in our head. They make us feel like we're not worthy. We did something wrong, like something's not clicking. What's not clicking, Steven? You know, and it takes on a world of its own. And the setback can kind of set you up for like really diminishing your own dreams or take you off the path that you're supposed to be on. So, yeah, don't get in your head about it too much. You know, I just think that a lot of times for me, what I do is I talk it out. I get it out there. I try to make sure that I'm just like, okay, so what exactly happened? Was it something I could control? How can I fix it going forward? And a lot of times, those are the questions I ask myself because for instance, and weight loss is like, what exactly happened? Oh, I gained 4 more pounds. So, how can I control that? Oh, you really went off the rails, stop going to the gym and start eating crazy food without any like repercussions. Can I change that? You can. Now, do you want to change that? That's the thing. So, it's like a lot of times setbacks just need working through and figuring out exactly what happened. But that's not always the case when it comes to like setbacks in financial situations or work, or in relationships. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But let's jump into the food topic before we jump into all that. So I would say today I want to touch on setbacks in the kitchen. And the things I want to talk about is that, like, one, some recipes punish small mistakes. And when I say that is a lot of times there are ways you can fix stuff in the kitchen, but some recipes don't allow you to fix stuff like easy like that. Say, for instance, you're making caramel or hollandaise or pastry cream. These are recipes that, like, as soon as you do something wrong, like wrong temperature, or you basically do 90% of it right, but that 10% destroys everything. And so when we think about setbacks in this sense, unfortunately, the setback sets you back so far, you have to start over, right? But a lot of times it's not even just because you did something wrong. It might just be another variable that you didn't even know about. You could be making caramel and not know that the sugar that you were using has a little bit more moisture in it because the humidity is high in your kitchen. And when you're trying to get that sugar to dissolve and everything's happening, it's just like things can be out of your control, right? The problem with this is you do have to take yourself out of it and start over. If you mess up caramel or a custard or pastry cream or hollandaise, 9 times out of 10, it's better to go ahead and start over and do it again. And what you learn from that setback is do it again, watch it closer, and then just notice what went wrong and try to fix that in the moment of making it again. Because the second part of it is setbacks cost time, not just effort. If you mess up all these things or like overcook your sugar with a caramel, you can't always fix it. But while you're trying to fix something that you know you can't fix, you're just losing more time. So it's much better to cut your losses and then start over. Not give up, but start over. And I think that's the biggest part. Is a lot of times we focus so much on how to fix something that we don't analyze, is this fixable or should I start over? And I think we say start over, we look at it as a failure. Trust me, if you're making caramel and you overcook that sugar, start over because okay, it messed up, it didn't work, but the time it would take to fix it, it wouldn't come out exactly how you want it anyway. So go ahead and remake it the way you want because most setbacks don't take away any of your skill, they just take away your time. Like, that's the issue. You're losing your time, and time you can never get back. Your skill is going to be the same. So do not worry about it. Broken emotion is actually one of the biggest ones. Like making an emotion of something, like doing a vinaigrette, a lot of times people will focus so much on fixing a vinaigrette to the point where I've made two more vinaigrettes by the time this person's still trying to fix a vinaigrette. And while he's fixing it, he also has to reseason it, add different amounts of ingredients to get it back to where he wants. And he's worked it so much that he quote unquote fixed it, but it tastes nothing like how he wanted. And I made two vinaigrettes in that time. So a lot of times, time is the biggest factor, no pun intended. So understand that and just know that like basically assess the situation and know when it's time to push through or cut your losses because that's a huge difference. Now, before we get into the next part of that, let's jump back into the topic at hand. I was talking about jobs and finances and relationships and setbacks. So here's the thing. I'm not even going to touch on relationships today. Only because I've been touching on relationships a lot lately, and I'm gonna let that one go for today. But let's talk about finances for a second because some of you might not know, but I have a degree in finance as well. I love finance. I love numbers. I actually was intrigued into getting my finance degree because of the fact that I quickly realized that most restaurants don't close because of food. They close because of the books, the ordering system, everything else besides the food. You can have amazing food and not know how to run a restaurant and know your numbers. So I wanted to know because I wanted my own business, and when I created my LLC and started my personal chef business, I wanted to make sure that I was at least understanding how it all works. And plus, I just always been really into numbers, right? But I think the biggest problem with financial setback is that it does defeat you in a way that you feel like you're never going to get off and under it. And I seen it growing up. I see it in my community. Um, you know, the average American lives paycheck to paycheck. And the problem with that is what we just talking about with caramel or making something like an emotion is that like that means that it does not take a lot for something to go wrong, right? And I think the biggest thing from a financial setback that you take away when you bounce back is that peace of mind that you can bounce back. Because a lot of times we feel like I live paycheck to paycheck. If something goes wrong, I'm done. There's no way I can do this. I have no way out. And then unfortunately, sometimes it happens and you don't get that paycheck or like something happens, but you make it through. So now that you have that like understanding you can do it, I think the other side of it is you also have a way of fixing it. And I don't mean fixing is like I'm just telling y'all like everybody can be like rich out here, everybody can do it. Not even saying that. Honestly, finance is really straightforward. You have to make more coming in than you have going out. That's it. That's like literally that's it. Like if you never anything else, I don't care what they say. Like I'm not a big blanket statement person, but that is essentially it in everybody's situation. I don't care if you make $1 million a year. If your bills are 1.5 million, you are in a deficit. I don't care if you make 30,000 a year. If your bills are 10,000 a year, you are in a surplus. So finance is just all about what comes in and what goes out. So the base point is getting your budget together, figuring out what goes out of your household bills every month. And the biggest mistake that people do is they don't count everything, right? Like you're not lying to anybody but yourself. You know your major bills, but you also know what you spend money on. You spend money on $20 a month on Netflix, put it in your bill. You spend money on gas, put it in your bills because it's coming out of your paycheck. Nobody else is giving you the money for those things. So you have to count it. And once you get all that together, then you look at how much do I make? Do you make enough to cover all that? Because if you don't, you have to figure out what to cut. And if you can't cut anything, then that's when we get second jobs. We figure out how to do another hobby or something to bring in more money. But essentially, it's all the same game. You have to make more, bringing it in, then goes out. But a setback does kind of trigger, I think, you into that survival mode because you didn't die and you made it through and it probably wasn't pretty, but you know that you can survive and it gives you like, I don't know, like this extra edge to be like, okay, like I was super, super nervous about that, but I know I can do it. But I think the next step of that is the planning for the future. And I don't care if it's $5, $10 a month. When you put back $5 to $10 a month and nothing happens for foreseeable future for a while, it's very, very nice if something does happen and then somebody's telling you, oh, you only putting back $10 a month. That's nothing. You know what it is? $10 a month turns into $120 a year. And let's say nothing happens for 5 years. That's more than what you had the last time you had a setback. So it does help. And I'm not saying like it's going to bail you out, but speaking from someone who's had financial setbacks, anything is better than nothing. And by setting yourself up for nothing, you have nothing, like literally. So, financial setbacks, I know a lot about. With the job situations and setbacks, that one I would say is a little bit different because of the fact of I don't know, like how I don't probably shouldn't ask my opinion on job setbacks. In my opinion, a lot of times, unless you got fired from an amazing job, um, I always feel like leaving a job has always set me up for a better situation. I've never been fired, but I have been asked to I've been asked to take a lower pay for the same job and I said no. um so it's basically like being fired because I was like, no, thank you. Um And so that happened, but I just feel like outside of that, I've just always stepped away from stuff that wasn't really making sense to me, and I've never gone down in a job situation. And I don't say that to say like anything other than I use everything that I've learned in previous jobs to know what I do and don't want and what am and not going to ask for. And I think that's a huge thing for everybody to do because a job setback, meaning that you leave this one job, is a great opportunity to set yourself up for a huge comeback. Because if you already work a job and the hours suck, the pay's okay, the people suck, why would you go to another job where it's the exact same thing if you have a choice? And that's also a thing, too. Very big privilege to have a choice. Now, if you don't have a choice, I get it. But if you do have a choice, and the job field right now is not amazing. So I feel like everybody can be having job setbacks right now. Um, so definitely don't take that personally because I mean, for the most part, there's not a lot of jobs to step up to. Like the jobs that are out here are the jobs that are available, and it's not a lot of them. So I've been very fortunate. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. I've been very, very fortunate, but I also worked really, really hard to get to where I am now. And I've definitely been in situations and jobs where I knew I wasn't happy. I mean, I literally, I've talked about it on this podcast, I literally left the job and got into therapy because I left that job. Like, so job setbacks are definitely something that might happen as well. But I think focus on the financial is a big one because especially in the climate that we're in right now and the world we're in right now, like financial setbacks, that's a hard one. But unfortunately, it's not something that a lot of us are not new to because most people live paycheck to paycheck, man. And that's just I think but the first step, I think what I said earlier, the first step is the best thing to understand. Like understand that what goes out and what comes in. Once you get that, like because a lot of us are not privy to financial literacy and it wasn't available, but now we have availability, like we have the ability to get a lot of information. So we just have to make sure we're helping each other get the information. All right, let's jump back into the food side of things. And I touched on this earlier, but I want to just really make sure you understand this is a huge point of knowing when to start over and knowing when to salvage something. So sometimes you save it, sometimes you lose it. But the experience teaches you both. Um, Basically, like the experience teaches you the difference between both. Sorry about that. Lost my train of thought. But yeah, it's just like it's pretty much like when to wait and when to pivot, what I was saying earlier. Because unfortunately, when you know that you can fix something, but it will not cost you more than it would cost you to start over, that's when you fix it. And when you understand, like, I need to start over and reset, that's when you need to start and reset. But you have to understand when to do these things. And in the food world, a lot of times, like, I can break this down to a lot of it being just really wisdom and having a really great like, I would say food structure, but like just having a skill set to understand, like, okay, this will break me if I keep trying to go through it, or nah, I got to just start over and do this. And this is for my home cooks. You probably already have done this before, but you don't even realize it. There's things you made over and over again, and you know how to fix it instantly, right? Like you're thinking of something right now. But there's things that you haven't made a lot or that you made a mistake on, and you're just like, I don't know how to fix this. Realistically, that's exactly what we're talking about right now. The things you know how to fix, that's like whenever you cook more and more recipes and you get to the point where you know how to fix them, then you can fix them. But some things aren't fixable, right? Like if you're making a souffle and that souffle does not rise, it's no way to fix that souffle, right? So you got to start over. And there's sometimes like the wisdom side of it comes from when you can know that before it even gets to the end of it. And you also do that a lot too if you cook at home a lot. You've made a sauce, you've made cookies, you made something where you're just like, this isn't gonna work. And I know I need to start over. Listen to your instincts because what happens is goes back to what I said earlier. You're wasting your time and you cannot get it back. You think like a simple batch of chocolate chip cookies, right? And you're just like, that's not hard. Doesn't take a lot of time. I'm just gonna bake these cookies off. All right, let's say really fast. Prep time and cook time, 30 minutes. But 20 minutes in, those cookies are not really cooking correctly. So did I not add enough baking powder? Did I not make sure the butter was room temperature? What didn't I do? All that stuff going through your head, but either way, you know that something's wrong. Instead of waiting another 10 minutes, take those cookies out, then taste them, figure out that they're not right. You're not eating these. You won't give these to anybody. Go ahead and start over, because that way you're not wasting an additional time that you do not have to waste. And that's what I mean by just understanding when to start over and when to savage. Because sometimes we can fix stuff and sometimes we cannot. So that's just the way the ball bounces in that situation. And I say last but not least, I want to say, and this goes for both, but especially in the cooking world, is you don't stop cooking because one dish failed. And that is like the biggest thing to take away from setbacks, is that like no chef quits after one bad batch of anything. Like you clean the pot and you go again. And really, realistically, a lot of times, a lot of food that you love came from somebody messing up first. like, like it was never the intention to make this dish the way that it was the first time. We mess it up plenty of times. My cookbook, a lot of recipes that have been messed up. A lot of my best recipes or best food I've ever made was from me messing up doing something and then starting over, or just like, redoing it again. I remember me and my friend Ryan, we talk about this still to this day. We were working on cruise ships, my first cruise ships ever. We messed up the recipe. We made this marinade sauce for this chicken, and we totally like added in the wrong. I don't know what we did. We still don't know what we did, but it was so delicious. We could not even recreate it. But we kept trying. Like we did not give up, of course. But like each week it was still good, but it just didn't get back to that week. But I think that's the thing, is like setbacks don't mean stop. They just mean adjust. And you can adjust to be like going harder, or you can adjust to being like, okay, let me just take a step back a little bit. But in the kitchen, there are things that just were unforgivable, like caramels. I mentioned in the beginning, like there's once you mess it up, it's messed up. Unfortunately, it's a lot of things where you will have to start over. But I never want you to stop cooking because something doesn't work out right. And that's the biggest thing. All right, guys, to wrap this up. Actually, it's going to be the same thing. Just said about cooking, man. Like, no setback, financial, relationship, we didn't touch on it. Job wise, personal wise, no setback should make you quit. Unless you have assessed the situation and you decide that you're quitting because of everything around that item or that situation, right? But the setback itself is not there for you to quit and give up. And yeah, man, every time that you have a setback, it's just a setup for something even better. That's what I always say. And to my people that have been listening and really been rocking with me, I say this a lot, but I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate you guys. And you're hearing this on YouTube, but you will be able to hear this on all streaming platforms by February. I promise we'll be back everything. And if you're already hearing it on all streaming platforms, that means, once again, we're already back. So appreciate you guys. New episodes every single Thursday. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube, and go ahead and get ready for all the stuff that's coming for 2026. 2026, I'm going to be dropping every week consistently. I'm telling you, like I'm putting in the work. So hopefully you like everything that comes out. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Cooking Your Way Through Life with Chef Hollywood.